And we really should attach him to this meeting before we get started.
Yes, Jim, are you able to hear? I know that he has his video off.
We really should attach him to this meeting before we get started. Jim, is that you? Any technical experts care to weigh in on this? It looks like he's trying to dial in or get in.
We should wait for him so we can have the quorum.
Yeah, we need him. Otherwise, we can't do the meeting. Amy Lightford, I knew would not be on. I don't think I knew about Kim.
Yeah, I think she let Diego know almost right away that it wasn't going to work for her schedule.
Okay.
Oh, there's Jim. There we go.
Okay. Have you got your microphone on, Jim? Because we're having trouble hearing you. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. We're almost there. Jim, can you hear us? Can you raise your hand if you hear us? Because we can't hear you. Okay, we're having trouble with you.
So Jim, on the bottom left of your screen, there should be a little microphone. And there's probably a line through it. So you want to click on that microphone and that should unmute you. Although it may not because you're using the headset. So those typically have different rules, possibly.
Jim, you might have to let your computer speaker, if you have one, do the work.
I'm also sending you some information so you can dial in so that we can hear your audio. So it might show up as your phone number, but you'll be able to speak so that we can hear you.
Yeah, he's toggling the microphone.
You can see on his picture, it says he's on mute.
Yeah.
But he was not on mute. So he's not on mute now and we still can't hear him though.
Yeah, so you think it might be a headphone issue?
Yeah, I think it's how his headphone is connected.
Okay.
Jim, can you just call in?
There we go. How's that?
There you go.
Okay.
That do it?
Yeah, that does it.
Okay.
What was the magic item you just did?
Okay, here we are.
Good. Are you just on your regular speaker now?
I'm still on my,
Okay.
okay, but you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
All right. So with that exciting start, that got all our attention. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order at 4:07, and we will start with a roll call. Trustee, and as per the Zoom protocol, if you could please say you're present and raise your hand, I'd appreciate it. Trustee Cervantes?
Here.
Trustee Keene will not be here. Member Keene and Member Lyford will not be here. Member Vitale?
Here.
Thank you. And Member Andrews is here. So we do have a quorum. Start here right at, as I said, 4:07. It's a very brief agenda, but it might take some time to get through with the discussion and so on. I don't imagine there's any approval or reordering of agenda items, but if you do want to change the order, let me know, let us know now. It sounds like maybe not. So now I'd like to get a vote or the adoption of the agenda. And do I have a motion?
move.
to adopt the agenda? Okay, moved. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Real quickly, there's only one thing on the I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Diego, so with that, and with that movement and second, let's go ahead and take another roll call. Trustee Cervantes,
Aye.
Trustee Vitale,
Aye.
and Trustee Andrews votes aye. And now I'm wondering, Diego, do we have any public comment on non-agenda items that's come in?
We currently do not.
So I didn't hear anything. I'm going to assume.
We currently don't have public comment.
Okay, great, thank you. And then on the consent calendar, are there any, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? There's only one item in that.
I'll move.
I motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Okay, so moved, and Rushmore, I think that you're seconding that. So all in favor, please raise your hand. I'm sorry, we'll start with Rushmore
Aye.
and member Vitale,
Aye.
and then I vote aye as well. So sorry about all of the routine stuff to get through here. One item on the consent calendar was the approval of the minutes. I should have asked and stopped and asked if anybody had any changes for that, but I do not. Okay, good. So sorry, a little bit of an awkward start. I apologize for that. This takes us right into unfinished business, and we have a method now that Nikki is going to present today of getting our first two consultants screened so that we can approve them for the regular board for the meeting, one of the meetings coming up. And I should probably turn the discussion over to Nikki on this to take us through the thoughtful way that she and other committees have put together a series of rating scales that will allow us to take a look at the people that apply for the two positions, the bond counsel and in municipal advisory services. And we're going to have a little to-do list by the time we're done with this, checking vendors that come in by April the 1st. But Nikki, I'd like to just go ahead and turn this over to you for a little bit of explanation about what's going on.
Sure. Thank you so much, Terry. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I want to start out by introducing the other people that are attending the meeting with us this afternoon. We have Cindy Byram with Eide Bailly, who we work closely with on our financials every month. In addition to that, I'm happy to introduce Tom Vandiver. Hopefully I said your last name correctly. Tom is someone that does work in bond counsel with a firm called Dentons. I was actually put in touch with him through Trustee Andrews, who knew someone that worked at the firm or something to that extent. Is that right, Terry?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you both for being here. These two are what we're calling our industry experts in terms of the two RFPs that we have out right now for municipal advisory services and bond and disclosure counsel. So as everyone is aware, we got the RFPs approved by the board, I believe in February. We posted them right after that meeting, and they are set to close on April the 1st, as you can see in the staff reports. So we did create a scoring matrix when we went through the recent RFP process to hire a capital project management firm. And I kind of used that format, which was created by Trustee Clark, our board president. One thing in comparing the two different scoring matrices was that the capital project management RFP asked for a lot of different criteria in order to score versus looking at the two RFPs we have right now, which very clearly outline what we are going to evaluate, which criteria we would be evaluating both of those two RFPs for. So starting out with the municipal advisory services, Nicole and I connected with both Tom, who has been involved in a lot of bond council work and worked with municipal advisors. Is that a fair statement, Tom?
Yes, that is. Thanks.
As well as Cindy, who obviously works in finance and advising to some extent in that way. To take a look at those criteria that we identified that you can find on page 7 of the board package. So with the capital project management, what we did was when we looked at the proposals, we scored on a 0 and 1 basis in terms of if the proposals included everything that we asked for in that RFP. And from there, we knew we were going to go into an interview process. So the matrix was just different because we knew we were going to have a whole nother evaluation round with weighted scoring. In conversation with Tom last week, who's been, obviously involved with many of these proposal processes, he encouraged us he looked at the criteria with us for the municipal advisor, well, more so on the Bond and Disclosure Council, and made the suggestion that we did scoring on the proposals out of 100. So if you look at page 7, and I think we should go through one at a time. So if there's suggestions or feedback on things that you would like us to include in that scoring process, please let me know. But we basically, it came right out of the RFP, what we are allowed to score on basically. So as you can see from that list, and I'll pull it up. I have it right here. Even though I've probably gotten a bit ahead of myself. Yeah, let's go back to timeline. I'm sorry. There's just so much to cover. This has been quite a process. So as was discussed at the CFD committee meeting on March 10th, we wanted to come back together today to look at the scoring matrix for both RFPs and get feedback from this committee in terms of like agreement on how we're going to evaluate the proposals and then score them and bring them back to the CFD committee for review. So that's what we're doing today. I was also tasked as the staff person to put together 2 working groups to evaluate these proposals. So what Diego and I have been working on is putting these teams together. So with this municipal advisory services, we're going to have myself, Nicole, Cindy with Eide Bailly, Tom actually is going to work as a special consultant with us to evaluate both. Kim Kenny volunteered for this. And I don't know that we told you yet, Rushmore, but you'll also serve on this scoring committee for the municipal advisory. So the 6
Yay.
of us,
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Said yay. Thank
Okay, good. So the 6 of us will be doing the proposal scoring once the proposals come in after that deadline of 5 o'clock on April 1st. After that, and as you can see in the package, and you know what, I'll pull it up on the screen so everybody can see it as well. Oh, Diego, can you let me share? Sorry for the delay. Am I able to yet? Let's see. Oh, there. Okay, here we go. Which one is it? No. I'm so sorry, I don't see it. Diego, can you pull up the board package for me, or this package? I don't know why it's not pulling it up on my screen.
Yeah, just give me one moment.
Thank you. So the timeline is on page 6. I'm not sure if you guys have it in front of you, but what we were hoping was that we would get the deadline. The deadline is April 1st, which is a Thursday. The working group would have until we meet on the 7th, which is the following Wednesday, to review and score all of the proposals that come in. We're not sure how many that's going to be. So depending on if it's not a large number, I'd really like to see everybody score all proposals. If it is a large number, we'll like have 2 to 3 people review each, but we'll know more once the deadline closes. We did see that with the capital project management, we got all 10 on the last day. So I anticipate that it might be a similar thing this time around. Diego and I are actually working on scheduling meetings with both of these working groups on April the 7th, which is Wednesday. And we're very hopeful based on the scoring criteria that we'll be able to probably select top firms that we would then take to the full CFD committee for review on their regularly scheduled meeting of April 14th. Is everybody following me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then the plan would be that the CFD committee would then review all 3 or whatever top number that we come up with. And Diego, I'm only seeing a black screen. Are you guys seeing the same?
Yeah.
Okay. That we would present those top candidates to the CFD committee.
There
Okay,
we go.
thank you. So here's my tentative timeline, right? And then the CFD committee would review those proposals, discuss at their meeting, and then take a recommendation for a municipal advisor to the full board for approval at their April 26th meeting. Now, under the timeline you see right there, there also will be a contingency plan in place that we feel like maybe potentially we have a couple top candidates and we want to do a round of interviews with those candidates. What that might look like is delaying the CFD committee meeting to after the 14th, basically, because it is a goal of Terry and I's to get these to the full board on April 26th. But again, I'm really hopeful. And if you want to scroll down and bring up the scoring matrix, that, you know, based on scoring out of 100, it'll be pretty clear that we'll have a couple top candidates to present to the CFD committee. Okay, any questions so far with that? Does that all make sense?
Oh, that's cool.
Makes sense.
Okay,
Nikki, I have a question and make sure I understand it. You talk about the 100-point scoring total. That will be as an individual for each one of these sections, basically, or is it?
so now if you look at what Diego has on the screen right now,
Yeah.
this is the scoring criteria. And as I mentioned, Nicole ran this by Cindy. Cindy, I don't know if you have any feedback.
I did. I was a little bit curious about the license to do business in LA County. Did you require that in the RFP?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then, so I was considering swapping that out with specific experience with library districts.
Thank you. I was going to add that too.
Okay. I think that's really important because there's a lot of municipal finance advisors, for example, that focus in the water industry, and they're very water specific. So your industry is going to have different nuances.
If you look down where it says, does proposal grasp a district priorities? I think that's where this question of library experience should pop in, because that's a 15-pointer, in my opinion.
I mean, another way that it could be handled is if you look at the lower down, proposer has completed 5 similar contracts.
Okay.
Potentially we could say preferably with some library systems in the past or something like that. And what we could do, like, so as a group, do we not want to require a licensed? I mean, it is written into RFP, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to score on it.
Nikki, I think that since it was put in the RFP, we should require it, but I would suggest that the first 3 lines, complete proposal package registered with SEC, MSRB, as well as having a license to operate in the county, that I don't think we should even be scoring those. Those should be just threshold questions, and they don't have any of those 3, you don't get a score. So, I mean, it's because, you know, you're not, if they don't have any of those, if they don't have the top 2, I mean, excuse me, the second and third one, they're not going to, get awarded anyway. So to me, those are just threshold, and I would start the scoring, starting at provided list of other government agencies, and then rework the numbers, because again, the first three I think are just threshold.
What you might want to consider, though, that is under that list of other government agencies with whom the firm presently is under contract, I think we should have requested a timeline under which they're under contract, whether they're starting or ending, and how that is going to add up to their ability to give us the time necessary to service us.
Can I respond just on somebody who I respond to RFPs a lot?
Mhm.
The way I would respond to the license to do business in LA County, because business licenses are pretty expensive, is I probably would have said, if I wasn't already doing business in LA County, I would say I would get it upon award of the contract. So I would say we are willing to provide it before executing an agreement. So you may see that in some of your responses. So you should be, I guess, prepared for that and how you would handle that. And there was something else I was thinking and it just escaped me.
What is the advantage of their having a license or not having it, as opposed to their carrying liability insurance for their work effort?
I think the liability insurance would be a given. That's a given with anybody. Like, for example, Eide Bailly, we provided all of our insurance certifications. I mean, that's a given. You just can't hire anybody without that.
Okay, but do we need to know that they've got it? We need to show proof?
Oh, yeah.
Where does it say that? It doesn't say that anywhere, does it?
In the RFP, it does. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we enter into a professional services agreement with whatever firm, that all that language is in there. that they
Okay,
have to sign off
fine.
on it. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing about projects that are going on, similar projects, and I could be out of my league and municipal advisors, but I would have a hard time if you had asked me that, to say, I have so many projects going on, but I have a lot of staff that I work with. So to list all of the projects that I'm currently working on, I would be challenged. That would take some time. If you asked them to do it, though, then you should evaluate them on it.
Mm-hmm. And we did.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm hearing is maybe we should combine a lot of the top ones into, and I don't know how you, like, do we have it as a knockout thing? If you don't have these top three, we don't even score you?
Well, I mean, to Cindy's point about the having a license to do business in the county, I mean, we could just as a group decide that we'll allow them to get it if they get awarded. But the first two, I mean, I think that's a non-starter. If it's not complete or they're not registered, to me, that's just a threshold. The third one about doing business in the county, we could allow that, and have them get a license later. Though I'd further say that, it'd be nice to be able to do business with an organization that's within the county of LA, local preference. But I don't know that we necessarily put that in RFP, so we can't necessarily say that now.
Nikki, did it ask for that in the proposal? Did it say you must be able to have a business license in Los Angeles County?
I believe so, because we built the criteria off of the RFP. Let me pull it up while we keep discussing.
And have we asked for any information as to resumes of people that might be assigned to the project should they get the contract?
Yeah, so that's where we'd be scoring at the second to the bottom, ability and capacity to perform the work, including key personnel committed to the project. Yeah. And that was one of the, when we spoke to Tom, like, what were the ones that we felt were the most weighted part of it? And that is, who are you going to be working with and what is their background specifically? Yeah.
And under the pricing schedule, I think we talked last meeting about whether or not this was going to be a fixed price or a not to exceed type contract versus just a straight hourly.
Yeah, I mean, they're required to fill out the rating sheet or the fee sheet, which is the last page of the RFP, which I'm sure it'll come in looking like how they format it, but that was definitely required. And with the municipal advisory, that wasn't a flat. It should come in at like basically fixed rates, depending on who's doing the work.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm still pulling them up.
And the last one down there, likelihood of success. Can you clarify what that is, what the intent of that is?
So basically that's a built-in category that kind of like is your overall feeling in terms of the proposal of whether or not you think they're the most successful firm that we could work with.
Oh, okay. Our feeling.
So
Yeah.
that's our subjective call, that particular one, right?
Yeah.
You know, getting back to Cindy's point about the license in LA County, you might say, will the firm be licensed to do business in Los Angeles County by the commencement of the job or something like that? Give a little bit of wiggle room, because if that is a knockout, if it's going to be a knockout item, it would be nice to give them some, you know, chance to say yes and then hustle and get the license done.
So I'm thinking we could change it to say, to Cindy's point, license to or acquire a license to do business in
Yeah,
LA
perfect.
County.
Yeah, that sounds
So
good.
we'll reword it that way. So back to Rushmore's point, do we want to take the top two and it's either a yes, no, like if it's not a complete proposal and they're not registered, then it's like yes, no. If it's no, we don't even keep scoring. Does that make sense?
Well, obviously, if they don't meet that requirement, then that's going to lower their final ranking or their final score and ranking anyway, isn't it?
Or do we feel like it's a knockout type of thing, you know?
Just a straight knockout. Oh, limit the, well, I guess that depends upon how many people ultimately apply, doesn't it? Can we make that decision based upon the number of applicants?
Well, let me just clarify. So when I say complete proposal package, there's to provide within the RFP, there are X number of required things they need to submit. All I'm saying is that they've submitted everything within that list. You can check the box when, in other words, when Diego and Nikki's team, Diego, whoever's opening up the packages, they look at the RFP, say, all right, this checklist, they're to provide 10 items. Okay, let's make sure they've got all 10 items. If they don't have all 10 items, then they're disqualified. It's not a complete submittal. So that's when I see complete proposal package, that's what I mean. They haven't provided all of the required 10 items. And I'm just making up a number 10, but that's what that means in my mind.
No, you're right about that. If they miss one, then they're out.
Right. So that's when on the context of the checklist of things they need to provide, and you know that they didn't submit one, then they're deemed non-responsive. So that really should not be a score. And as far as registered, the question would be is if we're going to select a service provider, are we going to go forward if they're not registered?
Right.
Well, I think that's the floor for sure. I mean, they have to be registered, I would think, for the municipal services advisor.
So
Tom
again,
might
so that's to me, it's a given. So those that, I mean, it's the stopper. You don't pass if you don't have either one of those.
Okay,
Diego, can I have the screen again, Diego?
Yeah, I would agree with that. You need to have somebody who's a registered municipal advisor, because that creates certain fiduciary duties to the district, and you know, that are part of that registration. And I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, I mean, you probably don't want somebody who's just going to come in saying, I'm proposing as a financial advisor, but I'm not a registered municipal advisor, because I think that you're looking for somebody to essentially advise you on the structuring of your financing. And that's a key role that the municipal advisor is essentially there for.
Okay, so Jim, I just wanted to show you real quick, like in the RFP, here's the instructions in the format. So it lays out everything that they should have.
Right. There is one item that you mentioned in here that their familiarity with the Government Financial Officers Association best practices. Do the best practices require an individual offering these services to hold certifications and or licenses to do so?
If you present yourself doing municipal advisory services and you are not registered with the SEC, it is a potential offense, and you're subject to being, essentially fined or barred from the industry and so forth. So I mean, it's a serious matter. So I think it's a threshold question.
Okay, so there is a state license or certification required in order to offer these services.
It's actually a federal license.
It's a federal license. Okay.
Okay, so I was wondering if I should bring up an editable version so we can talk through what this should look like.
And that would make sense, Nikki.
Yeah, okay. Let's see here. Oh, this isn't the right one. Hold on. I have so many files, it's ridiculous. Okay. Okay, let me share my screen. This is it, I think. All right, here we go. So basically, these two, we're not going to score, right? And this will be yes, no type of thing.
Mhm.
And if they get a no on either one, they are out.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so.
The only thing I would add to that is it's possible all of them will miss something in the package, and they'll all be no.
I doubt it. I mean, not based on our experience with the scoring we did for the capital project managers.
Now, the points
And I don't
that
know
we've
that-
just taken out, the 10, are we going to add those to two of the others so we still
Yes,
stay with
we-
100?
I
No,
think,
still with 100. Well, we can repurpose that. And I would also say for the license to do business in the county, since we talked about giving them the option to get licensed after the fact, I would say that's a non-scorable item then, because you're not, there's no value. There's no value with for
Right.
them to be licensed or not licensed. I would remove that point as well, because there's really nothing. We're not
Okay.
evaluating for possible scoring.
okay.
So that's 15 points now.
Yeah, I was thinking it might make sense to score this one higher, and I'll add a special, like
Library experience.
library system contracts or something like that.
I wonder if it also, or Nikki, if it also pays to put special district library system on there. There are some differences.
Yeah, I think that I agreed that I think the special district designation is an important feature too.
So what if it was especially a special district or library system?
Yes, because there is a significant difference there between our being a special district in an unincorporated area versus one that's in a library system.
Agree.
You know what? I'll put and or.
Yeah, that's good.
Because as you all know, special library districts were kind of rare, so.
Right. I sent you some emails earlier today. I don't know if you had a chance to look at any of them, but they talk specifically to special districts and unincorporated areas.
In
There were
regard
samples.
For this type of work?
Yes,
Jim?
exactly.
Okay. Yeah, when I get time, hopefully.
Yeah. I understand.
Nikki, just for the team, I would recommend that the 10 additional points, I would add it to the next two lines, 13 and 14, but that's just my recommendation. You guys may have your own thoughts.
So make these each worth 20?
Yes,
That's my recommendation.
I would agree.
I'll defer to the team.
No, I think that's good, Rushmore. I noticed that the project management, proposals we saw, the most impressive ones and showed the attention to details when they knew all about our library.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree. So how does this look with everyone?
Improved, definitely.
I like it.
Yep.
Now, do we feel like we need to talk as a group through the kinds of things we're going to be considering when scoring? Or do we feel like this is pretty self-explanatory the way that they are?
When they talk about governmental agencies, we're not going to be dealing with the County Board of Supervisors because we're our own agency, right? But the
Correct.
governmental agencies they may possibly get involved with might be with the county building department.
Let me go back to the RFP.
Probably not for municipal advisory services.
I think we just, when we included that in the RFP, it was just to kind of get a sense of how much other work we're competing with, basically.
Okay.
Oops, there's a typo.
Are there bullet points under the best practices that may be worthy of discussion with them?
Here's another thing that I might propose is if we agree with this as the CFD committee, that the working group, I would like to set up a meeting with them before the proposals come in. And maybe we as the working group talk through these scoring considerations so that the people that are actually doing the scoring are all in agreement around what that looks like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we have two members that aren't even here today that need to know a lot about the detail of how we're going to do this. One thing that scares me a little bit about this approach is the subjectivity that gets baked into it by whoever's filling it out. So having that common base, whatever it is, and making it understood to the scorers is really important, I believe.
Yeah. And what we would do is, as we talk through this as the working group, we'll memorialize that, and then that will be included in the event that anybody wants to see how we decided what scoring looked like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And, I would just, I know this is internal, but, people can see this and could be scored. I would probably change the wording of likelihood of success is that, and I'm just spitballing here, proposal has demonstrated the ability to succeed as. I'm putting the burden on the proposal has demonstrated the likelihood of succeeding as district manager. So I want it's based on the proposal. The likelihood is actually really makes it, although it's subjective, but just the wording alone. And since this is a public document, I'll make sure that it's based on the proposal, not just our personal family. There, it looks good, but it's not likely.
That's a good change, Rushmore. I like that.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's better language. That's good.
Other than that, I think this is good. And Nikki, I think your recommendation for the group is kind of like a jury getting its instructions, but when they get the case, like, all right, let's discuss how we're going to do this and what the rules are. Do the same thing with this too. So that pre-meeting would be helpful, and then the proposals come in. Then at least we've got the bumper rails. We know the direction.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we did with the capital project management before we scored proposals, was what would give them yes, what would mean no, so that we were all on the same page before we started reviewing.
Like it.
How did you arrange that meeting then, Nikki? Did you have a phone call with people, or?
It was a Zoom meeting with all the people that would be scoring.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. I think like I'll set up a meeting prior to that April 1st deadline with the group just to walk through this scoring matrix, and we'll fill in this column with the scoring considerations. Some of them are pretty straightforward, obviously, but others, like, does the proposal present a grasp of district priorities? Like, that's where we would say, like, maybe some mention of the strategic plan, or referencing the community facilities district, or, what would make it a more robust response versus others, right?
Yeah.
Was there an intent to conduct a walkthrough of the facilities prior to their making their submittal?
No.
I don't think it's really necessary.
You don't think it's necessary for them to have a familiarization with the hard object that they're going to be working with?
I mean, I would argue that maybe for the capital project manager, but not necessarily for the municipal advisor or bond counsel. No.
It's still a little tough too, just to get access to the library because we're officially, sort of closed
I mean,
down.
Jim, once we award, of course, we're gonna do a site tour
Yeah.
with them.
Well, just like all of us, though, we have an emotional involvement in this project. We would like to see that whoever is retained under these RFPs shares a similar emotional attachment to it. Would you not?
Well, and to
I'm
be
just
honest,
concerned
through
about-
the capital project management proposals, that did shine through. Many of them went to the libraries, took pictures outside.
Okay, that's good. All right.
They did
Yeah.
they did their clear research and talked through, like I said, the strategic plan, the architectural and design review documents. Again, like that's where I think that should be scored highly because it's like, how invested are you in this project?
Exactly. Okay, that's fine. Because if we find one of them didn't bother to even walk the library or figures that they're just so experienced at this they didn't need to, I would have reservations about their contribution to the project down the line.
Okay,
So, Terry, I think I think we're good with this one. Are you not?
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one.
Right,
Oh, Terry, you good?
Yeah, I think so.
excellent. So let me close, sorry. Stop share, let me save that before I lose it. All right.
Hey,
And
Tom, have
Yes.
we met before? You look very familiar. Your name sounds familiar too.
Not sure.
Cindy, do you have a background in like this bond and disclosure council work?
I do not.
So I don't want to make you stay on if you
Okay.
have other things to do.
Alrighty, not a
I'll
problem.
be in
All right.
touch. I'll be in touch about
Thanks,
our
Cindy.
meeting, about the.
Okay,
matrix.
sounds good. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, so I think the challenge with this one, and let me pull it up as well. And I did run this scoring matrix by Tom, so he has seen it. Is that there just isn't as much to evaluate in terms of like, there were more requirements for the municipal advisor in terms of like being registered and all of that good stuff. So I'm assuming these top two are
Same.
become our knockouts.
Yep.
again? Okay.
Just say you could have cut and pasted from the other one.
Oh, I could have. It's all right.
Okay, you indicate licensed to practice law. Would a CPA also fit into that category?
No.
No?
No, I wouldn't think so. It's council.
Well, it's counsel. Yeah, but it's okay. What about experience though with the financial aspects of bonds?
But that's not the role that you're looking for here.
It's
you're
not what
looking
we're looking
here is-
for. Okay,
What you're
this
looking
is
for here is a bond counsel who's going to issue the legal opinions.
okay.
associated-
I'm with you. Okay, forget what I said.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So looking over these, do we want to add to the 5 or more similar contracts? Another one about especially related or work with special districts and or libraries?
Most
system?
definitely.
I don't know. Well, Tom, what do you think? Because I mean, does it
No, I
make a
think-
difference?
I think definitely, I think the special districts are not that, haven't been around that long. And so I think you want to see what kind of experience they have.
Yeah, that's good.
They may not have specific library special district experience, but the special districts themselves are, I think, important.
Okay. And do we want to weight that one higher, like on the other one?
I would
I would
say,
think so.
okay, now this is an issue that we ran into at PUSD. Okay. There are certain firms out there that deal with school districts and small municipalities. And there are a number of them up there that have gotten some very negative press during the course of the last couple of years, particularly in the San Gabriel Valley. So I think we have to have caution with regards to the type of contracts that they have been involved with those special districts, you know, avoiding water contracts and solar contracts as opposed to capital improvement projects to existing city facilities.
So you are,
But is that sort of a differentiator within the 5 or similar contracts issue?
It would definitely be a different, if we said special district capital improvement and or library systems projects, that might help to clarify it.
You know, Tom, one thing that would be welcome to me right now is there's, to me, still a bit of a black box element to this whole thing. And, you know, we've been told the way to start out is to get the bond counsel secured and also the municipal services advisor. And then your pathway becomes a little more clear about setting things up legally and with bond underwriters and all the other stuff. So, I mean, could you just give us a real brief synopsis of what a bond counsel would do? What are the services we should expect from something like that?
Well, the role the bond counsel plays is that they basically draft all of the legal documents and structure the deal. But they structure it in conjunction with, you know, the advice, with kind of the advice that is being given by the municipal advisor. Because municipal advisor is going to be working with you to develop a financing plan. You know, whether it's going to be an underwritten deal and, you know, with an underwriter publicly offering bonds, whether they think that, you know, what may make more sense will be to try to do some type of a private placement, you know, with a financial institution or a group of them, or whether it would make sense, you know. And then you also get into the question of then if you're going to use an underwriter, then do you do a negotiated deal, or do you basically, you know, do it where they basically come in and bid at it? I mean, in a negotiated underwriting transaction, the underwriter is much more involved from the beginning, but if you have it where basically they have to come in and propose, you know, kind of on the final deal where it's a bid process, then in that situation, the municipal advisor is going to play a much larger role in terms of the actual structuring of the deal, and kind of getting it to a point of being available for that process. So, you know, it kind of depends upon, you know, again, with your source of revenue that's going to support the deal, how it's going to be structured, and you know, with the and you know, they will come up with a plan of finance that essentially will kind of lay this out. And the job of the bond counsel is to essentially document it, provide the legal opinions necessary with that, as a disclosure counsel as well. If you do a public offering of some kind, the disclosure counsel is going to prepare the securities disclosure document, because the thing that you'll be on the lookout for is that in the municipal space, while you don't have to do a registered offering through the SEC or with the state securities commissioner, at the same time, you do as the district and the issuer of the bonds, you do have potential securities law exposure relative to, you know, having proper and full disclosure for the potential investors in that. And so, you know, you're looking to your municipal advisor and to your bond counsel and disclosure counsel to advise you with regard to the scope of the disclosure and to basically give you advice that you, in fact, are meeting the standards in the industry of what disclosure should be to protect the district. Because the last thing you want is something where there's a claim made at some point that you've got what I call a 10b5 violation, where basically somebody claims that the disclosure was not complete and accurate, and therefore they have a claim for possibly rescinding their investment or for damages from the district associated with the issuance. So that's what you're looking for, is to have people who are professionals, have experience in the space. I would say that the one other issue, perhaps, since you're asking them to bid on disclosure counsel, is that you may want to also somewhere build into this experience in connection with publicly offered bonds. And whether or not they, in fact, as part of their background and experience, what kind of experience they have with that, and if so, what are some of the bond issues that they've worked on that would basically identify that.
Tom, what makes these things more or less attractive to potential buyers?
What you have is that when you do a bond issue, probably the largest market for it are institutional investors who basically buy it into bond funds. Major insurance companies are purchasers of bonds. And so if you're doing it as a public offering, an underwriter often will look to institutional investors as kind of the primary source. Now, in doing a bond issue if you're doing a $20 million bond issue, in the scheme of things, that's not overly large. And so then the question is whether or not the underwriter is talking about actually marketing bonds in smaller denominations that might be attractive to residents or people who might be interested in essentially individuals buying it for their own investment. And so that also ties into if you end up with an underwriter, who the underwriter is and kind of where they're going to market. Because if you have some underwriters, they have a strong ability to market on a retail basis to the individual investors. But other underwriters like a Goldman Sachs or somebody like that is they don't really depend upon the retail portion of the market. And in fact, they look to institutional investors. So, again, if you ended up in that type of a situation. And so then the question is, for a potential investor, it's a question of what is the return? What is the return on the investment?
Right.
What kind of rate are the bonds going to have on them? And they're going to be tax exempt, which basically makes it that much more attractive. And where does that fit in the market relative to this, and how secure are they? There are, if you're going to end up with a bond rating, then that's going to make a big difference in terms of what kind of potential investors you have, because a lot of institutional investors and bond funds can only invest, often have a limited investment in non-rated paper. And so one of the things the municipal advisor may be looking at in terms of is the ability for the district to get a rating on the issue, what that means. And then also, if that is not something that can be done readily, then they look at the question of, well, do we look for some type of credit enhancement to provide a rating like bond insurance or something else like that, which is part of the whole analysis in terms of figuring out how to structure it.
So the municipal services advisor is going to be the one that has the biggest role in steering us to the right bond underwriter, the right bond sort of package for us. Is that right?
I would say probably so, yes.
Okay. And the two things that you described there, that they're taking care of the legal part of this and also the financial part of it. At no time do your services or that of a municipal services advisor sort of intersect with the actual building and construction of what's going on, right?
Well, they do from this standpoint that if you were doing a bond issue, the tax laws will govern the fact that the proceeds of the bond issue have to be used substantially to pay for capital cost. So it relates to what your construction contract is. Part of the disclosure is going to be, you know, if you have these specific projects that you are financing, they're going to be looking at it to have in place probably a construction contract with a guaranteed maximum price contract on it. You know, that you've basically got commitments that the sources of funds that you have that you're looking to, or the stream of revenue to support the bond issue are supportable, you know, because when you close on a bond issue, unless you do a private placement that, you know, where you do it, what's called a draw bond, what happens is the bonds are sold up front, the money's put into an account with a trustee, like a US bank or other institutional trustee. They have it in a project fund. You draw the money is drawn as you spend to build your project. And then, you know, under the tax laws, again, you have to basically have like 95% of your proceeds need to be spent for qualifying capital expenditures. And in addition, there's basically kind of a limitation where you need to probably have a reasonable expectation up front that you're going to be able to spend the money, complete your project within 3 years. And so, you know, you can't just put the money aside, because what happens is that you know, the money, when it gets deposited with the trustee, gets invested. But right now, the investment of those funds is going to probably yield far less than what you're actually paying on the bonds. But in theory, you could have a situation of interest rates suddenly turned around where the investments could be more or something. So there are complex arbitrage rules that kind of deal with the ability to arbitrage tax-exempt bond proceeds that can come into play. And that's where your bond counsel is going to be analyzing the structure of the deal to be sure that it's set up so that you're not going to run afoul of those arbitrage rules.
Okay, and ours is a little different, as you may know, in that some of the bond money that we have in this measure that was approved will go toward operations as well. It doesn't all go toward construction. So they can build that into the whole formula as well.
Yeah, they would build it into the formula as a governmental, you know, a special district governmental entity. You have some more flexibility in terms of some of that, but you might end up where it's too large a portion of that is going into basically supporting operations, and essentially the working capital of the district. And you may also end up in a situation where you may end up with a portion of your bonds needing to be taxable and not tax exempt.
Okay. But all of this gatekeeping occurs when we get a municipal services advisor on board who can tell us.
That together with the bond counsel.
Okay, so I would think that the ability of a municipal services advisor to start promptly with this project would be something we want to blend into the assessment as well, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you for that. I've been waiting for this moment where I learn a little bit more, because we're all out there trying to guide the ship, but you know, there's some shoals and we need to know where they are. So.
Okay, and then it's up to the legal counsel to verify or confirm the veracity of the information that is going to go into that bond offering, as far as its accuracy and how it identifies the expenditures of the monies, the percentage that goes to operations as opposed to the percentage that goes to soft costs as opposed to hard costs. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, soft costs that are capitalizable that aren't a problem.
Yeah, when I refer to soft costs, it's the consultants that'll be preparing the drawings and whatnot, and the engineers and that sort of thing.
Let me ask you one thing just occurred to me. Is the district starting to make commitments or incur expenses associated with these projects yet?
Your mic, Nikki.
I hear you, Nikki.
The only thing thus far is we did our RFP to hire a capital project manager, which will be paid out of the bond issuance money as overseeing both projects.
It involves, if it involves soft costs, that's not a problem. The only thing I was going to say is that under the tax laws, if you were actually starting to make commitments for, things related to actually buying equipment or other things that are related to the kind of hard cost of the project, you would have needed your board to have adopted an inducement resolution indicating your intent to in fact do these bonds and incur these expenditures. And it may in fact be something that you want to kind of do anyhow.
Mhm.
And if you want, we can help kind of just put the parameters of that together if you want, or as soon as the bond council is on board, you can do it, because there's another rule under the tax laws that basically say that, you can't go back and reimburse yourself for expenditures you've made if it's more than like the hard cost, more than 60 days prior to the time that had this board adopted statement of intent.
Oh, that's good to
And
know.
maybe that the actions of the board already have substantially constitute that statement of intent anyhow.
Mhm. And I did want to raise that I believe one of the next RFPs we're going to put out is for CFD administration. Again, we want to get the municipal advisor on board first, but I believe that person's going to help us with that differentiation of capital versus operational and service funding, and all of that work will fall into their bucket, if that makes sense.
Right.
Mhm.
Nikki, is it also my understanding that the bond proceeds, in addition to operational costs, are limited to the hard fixed costs of construction, maintenance, and rehabilitation, as opposed to the purchase of any movable elements, replacement of furniture, computers, or anything like that?
From a tax standpoint, you can pay for furniture and fixtures. The only issue you run into there, candidly, is that there's another tax law rule that basically says if you, depending kind of what the length of the term of your bond issue is and the maturity, that it can't exceed 120% of the useful life of the assets that have been financed. And so that only becomes candidly, in my experience, that only becomes a problem if you're doing primarily an equipment or furniture and fixtures type of a financing where you have a lot of short-lived property that you're investing in. But if you're doing building improvements or renovating buildings that are going to be basically built into, for capital purposes, into the real estate, that automatically typically gives you like a 40-year useful life for this purpose.
Right.
I have a question for Tom. Going back to your statement about the proposal demonstrating experience with publicly offered bonds, is that a distinct enough category to have its own category, or should we just wrap that into the overall experience working with special districts and library systems?
It might be worth having its own category, in which case you could have them identify any publicly offered bond issues that they've worked on, maybe within the last 5 years and then and also identify the underwriter of any of those issues.
How did you put that again?
The experience in publicly offered bond issues.
Okay.
And what I would do, Nikki, as well is that I would remove, I would just put 10 points there, and I would remove line 10, which is provided 5 external client references. That's not really that's a scoreable item. It's yes, they did, or no, they did not.
Okay. Do you want me to move it up, do you think?
I would move it up. I would probably move it up into the category below license to practice law, because they're supposed to provide 5, and it's yes or no. That's to me, that's another threshold.
Yeah, that probably makes sense, because your client reference category right there doesn't really tell you anything in terms of the quality of those references.
No, not at all. It's just, I submitted 5. It could have been anything under the sun. You don't know.
Okay.
But I think based on that, those adjustments, I think that's a pretty good list there for teasing out the best qualified. Now we just have to assign the 5 last remaining points. And my recommendation would be for line 12.
Yeah, who you're gonna work with.
Yeah, I'd add the 5 there. Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. So everyone agrees with this scoring
Hmm.
sheet?
I do.
And I didn't mention it, but this working group is going to include myself and Tom as well. Jim, thank you very
Mhm.
much.
You're welcome.
My IT manager, Christopher. I didn't want to make Nicole sit on both because it's going to be a lot of work. Well, not a lot, but to have her on both. Christopher is our IT manager and has handled a lot of proposal reviews, so I'm sure he'll be great with it. And then one of the other CFD committee members, I'm waiting to hear back from Amy to see if she's able to sit on it. If not, I'll be reaching out to you, Terry.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Nikki, I also sent you an interesting article that just came out on the Whittier Library District. And
I was in a meeting with their director this morning, and I think I'm going to head over there soon.
oh, good. You answered my question then. That's great.
She actually came to visit us when we did our limited opening back in October to see how it went. And we had a long talk about the fact that they're renovating a mid-century modern building as well.
Yeah, I know the architect of the project. It's been
good.
quite a lengthy, 19-year gestation period to get to where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah, she spoke very highly of that architectural firm too.
Without being biased, they are one of the tops in the West Coast, if not the nation. They have done some extraordinary libraries in the past, and they also can work within tight budgets.
Nice. All right, thank you guys. That was
Okay.
very good.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Tom, thank you for your insight. Really appreciate it.
Happy to contribute.
Good meeting. Good meeting.
So Nikki, the next thing is to simply get the proposals in, and then it's a little too early, I suppose, to think about what the time should be for meeting as a group to score things. But do you think it'll happen around the 7th of April, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna get that on the calendar. As soon as I want to connect with a couple of the members of each team to make sure that they're available before we schedule it. But I plan on having both on April 7th.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
I don't think so. No, that was really good.
Right.
And
Till the
then-
next meeting.
And then Diego, just a little housekeeping thing for you, on this agenda for this meeting, it had the wrong date on the very top, so you might want to change that for the record. And I think we've gone through the entire agenda then, right? Unless are there people out there that have any ideas or suggestions for a future agenda item? And if it doesn't hit you now, you can always get a hold of me or Nikki to ask that be put on the next meeting agenda.
Okay.
All right. If
Good.
there's nothing else then, are we ready to adjourn?
We are.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a motion for that to make it legal?
I make a motion that adjournment take place.
Okay.
Forthwith. Yes, let's adjourn.
All right. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 5:10 p.m. And thanks everybody for
Welcome.
attending. And Tom, it's nice meeting you. Thanks so much for your contribution. Really appreciate it.
Good.
Thank you, everyone.